Okay, this is the video for the Review 18 for Honors Geometry, which is due this Friday, May 1st. The test will also be due this Friday, May 1st. So I'm going to go through just like I've done before and do all the problems, talking about them, showing you how to work them, and then make sure you use your review on the test. So number one, the pole for a tent makes a 78-degree angle with the ground, and the load on the pole is 22 pounds. So if you were to draw a picture of this, the pole of a tent makes 78-degree angle with the ground, and then the load is 22, okay? We want the horizontal and vertical loads. We want the horizontal vertical loads. Now this is where I gave you a shortcut, and I said your horizontal load, or your X, is always the magnitude times the cosine of the angle, okay? So that means I would do magnitude is 22, cosine of 78, okay? Then for the vertical load, or the vertical component, I said it was the magnitude sine of the angle. I just gave you a shortcut, okay? It comes from that right triangle, but I'm giving you a shortcut. So your magnitude is 22, sine of 78. And then you type those on your calculator just like that. Some of you are continually missing these, and I've told you that you're missing them and told you to be careful when you put them on your calculator. So again, I'm going to show you on your calculator. You should type in 22 cosine 78, and you should get 4.57. Okay, rounded to the nearest hundredth, which is what you're asked to do. Now, some of you are getting really weird numbers here, which is probably because you're not on degrees. Now, I know this is not the same calculator that you have, but on the calculator you have, right in this corner, there should be a DEG. If there's not, look around here on the top part of your calculator. Now, I know this is not what your calculator looks like, but around in these buttons, around in this area on your calculator, there's a DEG button. You need to hit it until you see DEG in the corner to fix it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, send me a picture of your calculator, and I will show you exactly how to find it, okay, to fix it. But like I said again, some of you are continually missing this. And then the next one is 22 sine 78, and that gives you a 21.52, okay? So the first one is 4.57, and the second one is 21.52, okay? So that's number one. Then on number two, you're finding the mid segment of the trapezoid. Mid segment of trapezoid is taking base 1, which here is 5, base 2, which is 17, and dividing by 2. And some of you are missing this because you'll take this and type it on your calculator like 5 plus 17 divided by 2 and not get the correct answer, because you've got to tell the calculator to add 5 and 17 first, then divide by 2. So it should be 11, and it is feet, so make sure you label it. That's an 11, okay? So make sure you label that. Number 3, you've got the circle with 2 chords. This is 10, this is 8, this is 16, and you want this part, so I'm going to put an X there because that's the part you want. You want EB or BE. This is B, this is E. So you set up 16 times X equals 10 times 8. So 16X equals 80, divide by 16, so X is 5. That's where you stop that one. Then on number 4, you've got 2 rectangles. You've got one rectangle that has a 2X on it. You've got another rectangle that has a 4X on it. You're told that the perimeter of the smaller one is 36, and you want the perimeter of the big one. So set up a scale factor. 2X over 4X is 1/2. That reduces to 1/2, and then set up a proportion. The ratio of the perimeters is the same as the scale factor. So small over large. How do I know this is small over large? Because 1 is smaller than 2. So my small perimeter is 36. I need the big perimeter. So P equals 72, and it's in feet, so make sure you label it. That's the way I want to see something like that, okay? Then on number 5, you're given 2 vectors. You're given a horizontal vector, of 2,950, 0, and then you're given a vertical vector of 0, 350, and you want to find the magnitude of the vector. You want to find the magnitude of the resultant. Well, the resultant is when you add them together, which here is really easy. It's 2,950 and 350. So then magnitude is where you do the square root of x squared plus y squared. So square root of 2,950 squared plus 350 squared, not 300 squared, 350 squared. So type that on your calculator. Second square root 2,950 squared plus 350 squared, and then round that. We're not told what to round it to, so I'm going to go ahead and give 2 decimal places. 2,970.69, and it's in feet, so it's feet. So make sure you label it. Then number 6, you're finding a circle. You're finding an angle interior to a circle. So this is x, this is 42, and this is 80. So if you want that angle interior, you're going to add your arcs, which are 80 and 42, and then you're going to divide by 2. That's what x is going to be. So when it's inside, you add and divide by 2. And again, make sure that you add first. 80 plus 42 is 122, and then divide that by 2. So you get 61 degrees. That's that angle, and that is a 61. Okay? Then number 7, you've got a cross section, and the cross section is a circle, and you're asked to find the perimeter of that cross section. Well, the bottom base has a radius of 3, so that means your cross section has a radius of 3. So it's just circumference, 2 pi r. So you do 2 times pi times 3. You could leave it as 6 pi. It's in meters. Or you could go ahead and multiply that out. That's about 18.84 meters. Either one. I would leave it in pi. It's easier. And it doesn't specify. But that's the perimeter. That's how you do that. Here's your cross section. Here's your base. So they have the same radius because that's a cylinder. Okay, then number 8. Now on number 8, I've crossed out that point A and put the origin. So you are doing a 180 degree rotation about the origin, which means you're taking x, y, and changing it into negative x, negative y. Okay, so we're taking 2 comma negative 3, this is x, y is 1 comma 0, and z is negative 1, negative 1. So my x prime is negative 2, 3, because I just changed the signs. That's all I do is change the signs. My y prime is negative 1, 0, and my z prime is 1 comma 1. Now, on your review, I have numbers, I have lesson numbers on them. This lesson is from 78. So you need to go back and make sure that you know how to work a 90 degree rotation and a 270 degree rotation as well, because on the test I don't know which one it's going to be. Well, I mean, I know, but I'm not going to tell you. It could be 180, it could be 90, it could be 270. So what I'm saying is I'm not sure that it's 180, or I'm not going to tell you if it's 180 or not. So you need to go back to lesson 78 and make sure you know all those types of rotation. And do not graph this. If you graph this, I'm going to count it wrong, because I've said over and over not to graph it, and some of you are still graphing it. Don't graph them. I know it may say to graph it, but I don't want you to graph it. I just want the new coordinates. Then on number 9, you're checking to see if this is a rhombus. 3x plus 14, and this side is 35. If x is 7, so you want to know if it's a rhombus if x is 7. We'll plug that 7 in. That's 21 plus 14. That's 35. We're told that this is a parallelogram, and a parallelogram with congruent consecutive sides is a rhombus. So yes, it's a rhombus because they equal. Because that equals 35 and that equals 35. It tells us already it's a parallelogram. And so a parallelogram with congruent consecutive sides is a rhombus. Then number 10, you're supposed to decompose this vector. I know that sounds really scary, but you just want the horizontal component and you want the vertical component. And when it's in component form, that's what you do. This is the horizontal component. This is the vertical component. That's how you decompose a vector. Done. Number 11, you want to write an equation to relate all the x and y coordinates of the points that lie on circle M. So you want the equation of the circle, which is not that. X minus k all squared plus y minus, x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared. And some of you, again, are still doing crazy stuff with your equations of circles. The center we're told here is 0, 0 because it says it's centered at the origin and my radius is 6. So if my center is 0, 0, that means this is just x squared and y squared, and then that's 6 squared. Do not leave the 6 squared, so it's x squared plus y squared equals 36. And that is 11. And leave it there. Again, some of y'all are doing some crazy things, and the equation of the circle should be one of the easiest problems you have, okay? So be real careful with that. And my marker's kind of going, I guess it's dying. That's not good. Okay, so that's number 11. Then number 12, you're simply finding the perimeter of a regular pentagon. If it's a regular pentagon, that means all its sides are congruent. A pentagon has 5 sides. You multiply by 1.9 because that's the side length, and you get 9.5 meters. Make sure you have it labeled. Number 13, does the shape below have lines of symmetry? You should be able to recognize that. It doesn't have any lines of symmetry. Number 14, you've got vector A that is 0, 3. You've got vector B that is 8, 0. You want to find the magnitude and angle of the horizontal of the resultant vector. Remember, the resultant is what you get when you add. So when I add these, I get 8, 3. Okay? If I want the magnitude, remember the magnitude is the square root of x squared plus y squared. That's my magnitude. So it'd be the square root of 8 squared plus 3 squared. Doesn't tell us, oh, does tell us, round to the nearest hundredth. So for the magnitude, we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth, which is 8.54. But for the angle with the horizontal, remember that's your inverse tangent of y over x. And this is in the first quadrant, so we don't have to worry about, because when I went over this, I said, you know, sometimes we've got to put in the second quadrant and do some weird stuff. But this is in the first quadrant. How do I know? Because they're both positive. So we're going to do inverse tangent of y, which is 3 over 8. So on your calculator, you're going to type in, and even if your calculator doesn't look just like mine, it's the same thing. If you've got the TI 30, like I've told you to get, you do second tangent and put in 3 over 8 because you want the angle measurement. So you're doing an inverse tangent, and it's 20.55. I want it rounded to the nearest degree. So this should be 21 degrees. If you do not round this to the nearest degree, you're going to get your angles wrong. The magnitude can be to the nearest hundredth. The angle needs to be to the nearest degree. So that's the way you do number 14. Then on number 15, you've got a triangle. Number 15, you've got this right triangle. You are looking for angle theta, which is also named Q. This is 16, and this is 37. So again, if you want an angle measure, you've got to do inverse sine, inverse cosine, or inverse tangent. So you've got to see how 16 and 37 are related to the angle you want to find. So here's my angle. Well, this is opposite because it's across the triangle. This is opposite. 37's hypotenuse. You should know 37's hypotenuse. So this is opposite. That's not where the 16 is. 16 is on adjacent. Well, the one that uses adjacent is cosine. So inverse cosine of adjacent 16 over 37. So again, remember sine uses opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So just FYI, that's your sine, cosine, and tangent. When you're looking for the angle measurement, you do the inverse. And then I want this rounded to the nearest degree, which should be about 64, okay? So again, let me just show that on the calculator again. Remember, you're doing second cosine, put in the 16 divided by 37, and then you round it, which is 64. So make sure you round it to the nearest degree. That's what I want your angle measures round to. Then on number 16, we are solving, and it says to solve by graphing, which I do not want you to do. I do not want you to solve these by graphing. You're going to solve it algebraically, not geometrically, not by graphing. And be careful, because on the last test to review, One of these was a negative, and several of you used a positive, and it messed everything up, okay? This is positive 4/3 x minus 6 and negative 2/3 x plus 6. So you set them equal to each other because they both equal y. So that's the 4/3. Now what I would do, and you don't have to do it, but what I would do is I would multiply everything by 3 to get rid of that fraction. So it'd be 3x minus 18 equals negative 2x plus 18. Because 3 times 4/3, the 3's cancel, you're left with a 4. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times negative 2/3 leaves a negative 2, and then 3 times 6 is 18. So then we add 2x. So we get 6x minus 18 equals 18. Add 18. So 6x equals 36. And then divide by 6. So x is 6. Don't stop there. So many of you stop with x and you don't find y, and then you get it wrong. So don't do that. We've got x, now we need to find y. You can plug it in here or you can plug it in here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to use the negative 2/3x plus 6. So that'd be negative 2/3 times 6 plus 6. So 3 goes into 6 and leaves a 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So that's a 2. So 6 comma 2. Because y equals 2. Make sure you put it in an ordered pair. Make sure you put parentheses around that ordered pair, 6 comma 2. So that was number 16. Number 17, we are solving that inequality, 5x plus 2y greater than 11. We're solving it for y. You're not having to graph it. We're just solving it. So we're going to subtract 5x, and we're going to get 2y greater than 11 minus 5x, and we're going to divide everything by 2. So y is greater than 11/2 minus 5x over 2. That's all you do. That's it. You don't have to graph it. You just had to solve that inequality for y. Then number 18, we've got a sketch that is 12 by 4, and it's increased by 150%. We want the lengths of the sides of the painting, so we want the lengths of the new lengths. And then what does the perimeter of the sketch, how does the perimeter of the sketch compare to the perimeter of the painting? So if I'm increasing by 150%, that means I'm multiplying by 1.5. Or I'm dividing it by 2 and adding it back to itself, just FYI. So 12 times 1.5 should be, whoa, not that, 18. Is it in inches? Inches. And then 4 times 1.5. So if I divide the 4 by 2, that's 2, and I add it back to it. So that's 6 inches. So the new one is 6 inches and 18 inches. Okay? So make sure you put inches on it. Then if you want how the perimeter of the sketch compares to perimeter of the painting, you just make a scale factor. Because perimeter, how the perimeters compare is how the sides compare. So 4/6, which is 2/3. Or you could put 12/18. It's still 2/3. So that's how it compares. So you've got to have all 3 of these answers. Make sure you label inches. Make sure you label those. Then number 19, you've got this triangle right here. This is 18, this is 63, and this is A right here. And we want to find A. So again, we're either using sine, cosine, or tangent. Sine uses opposite over hypotenuse, because here's my angle. Opposite over hypotenuse, I don't have hypotenuse. Cosine uses adjacent over hypotenuse. Again, I don't have hypotenuse. Tangent uses opposite and adjacent. So I've got to use tangent. So tangent of 63 equals opposite A over adjacent 18. Opposite A over adjacent 18. Then you multiply by 18. Again, be careful with this. Several of you are missing this. I'm thinking maybe you're putting the tan 63 in first and then multiplying by 18, which is incorrect because I'm seeing a lot of numbers like this. Don't do it this way. Type it in just like you've written it, or just like you should have written it, with the 18 in front. And that's why I stress that you put that number in front, because now you type it in your calculator just like that, 18 tangent 63, and you get 35.33, depending on, yeah, nearest hundred, those 35.33. So A is about 35.33. So again, be careful putting it in your calculator. And then the last one, number 20, we are, an ice cream cone has a radius of 1.2 and a height of 6.2. What's the volume? So volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared times the height, or pi r squared times the height divided by 3. So pi, my radius is 1.2, my height is 6.2, and I'm dividing by 3. And it doesn't specify. Don't leave it exact, because you're going to have decimals, so don't leave it with the pi. Go ahead and multiply it all through. So use your pi key on your calculator. So I'm going to put pi in, times 1.2 squared, times 6.2, and then divide by 3. So that can all be put in together, because the calculator will multiply. It'll do its order of operations like it's supposed to. It'll square like it's supposed to, multiply, and then divide last, which is what we want it to do, because it's just multiplication and division. And that's about 9.35 inches cubed. So make sure you label it. 9.35 inches cubed. Okay, so again, this is the Review 18. Do the first. It's due Friday the 1st, this Friday, with the test. I'll send the attachments, the review and the test, for you to use.